Good afternoon to all. There is no noise. Yeah. So what I believe is pharma professionals will have 100% efficiency, whatever the condition and whatever the time. Good evening to all. That sounds good. So before I start, I will take you to how the pharma journey started in India. In 1901, Sri Praful Chandra Ray, who started the Bengal Chemicals and Pharmaceuticals in Kolkata. So the journey started from that point, and it has leaped a long journey into the Indian pharmaceutical industry. So today, if you see, we are having a lot of companies who are actually putting a lot of efforts in the innovation, clinical research. We have so many clinical research organizations placed in India. The pharma companies are actually putting a lot of efforts in the innovation and execution, starting from the clinical research. With this, I would like to mention this. India is truly pharmacy of the world. The journey has reached to this place now, and this is also supported, and we are actually proud to transcend this journey to across the borders, and also we should take this to the next level into the coming years. So I would like to acknowledge each one of you also the contribution, and you are the key differentiator in this particular journey to make this happen. And in pharma, the speed and resilience are not just operational metrics, they are the patient outcomes. The clinical research also very complicated subject, and it gives a lot of insights and efforts for the pharma company to take this product to the market. So much of journey is actually in need, it is required. And the clinical research to commercial success is very intensive subject. In this subject, we start early from the R&D and product identification and clinical trials, and also to all the way to the last mile delivery of high quality medicines to the right people at right cost and at the right time. So the supply chain is deeply rooted from the entire journey. It has to be transcend. Successful clinical trials always seen as the finish line, but let us be honest, it is the starting point. Clinical trial success proves that this therapy can work, but the commercial success ensures it will for the patient, physician, and entire health system. So with this, I would like to ask a few questions on the distinguished panel members, and we will take you the discussion more intensively and interestingly to you all. So the first question, so Ashish, so why does the transaction from clinical trials to commercial manufacturing remaining one of the most complex phase in pharma value chain, and where do organizations most often see a disconnect?
A very good evening to everybody. Firstly, this subject of clinical trial is a vast subject to talk about. I may try to cover a bit of it, but important to understand is the commercial perspective as well. The success rate from clinical trial to commercial is still from the couple of decades has improved to 7 to 10% now. And when we talk of the CDMO part in this whole clinical journey, if we talk of the entire pharma, global pharma market, close to around $1,600 billion, stands today, and CDMO kind of captures around 10 to 12% of it, which if you kind of review in the previous decade, it was hardly 5 to 6%. This means this space is growing, the sector-wise, in terms of services what they are offering. So CDMO has shown a great success in terms of timeline to the market, to optimize the cost, and to bring a good know-how. See, one company cannot be an expert in all areas. That is where the niche segment of learning and these CDMOs come to the picture. We, the pharma companies, when we start a project for clinical phases, we know a landscape which is available on an FDA.gov or EDMA web guidelines. But what we are missing, the practical aspect of it, wherein these guys come in and give us a learning curve. And from the journey, what we have been through as an industry I'm talking, plus my experience together, we have seen a lot of gaps which over the years have come up and where these CDMOs plays a key role. Just to keep few pointers about the starting challenges. The very first challenge is the site identification where you are thinking to develop. I'm talking for early clinical phases, the molecule need to be established. Which site? That is for API or for drug product, what is drug substance we say, then the formulation that is the drug product. These guys come in and identifying an established facility in place. If you start from scratch, the time to invest, to erect the facility, and then to make the product which goes for clinical phases, it's nothing less than 2 years time frame. So these guys cut the time frame to the market. So that is a capex investment purely, which simply says in-house versus outsourcing isn't a better option when we are talking for these kind of areas. The other transition which these guys, CDMO business, bring in, the challenges during scale-ups. They also bring their know-how together with our technical experts, how to scale up in a fast manner. The availability of 5 liters to 200 liters to 2000 liters of scale of vessels availability for APIs. The kind of facility options we have are mind-boggling to support the whole phase of development. Important piece which they also connect are internal silos sometimes we have in the company. The hardcore scientist who is in R&D plus the clinical medical team and the commercial guys we come to a table when it comes to a discussion with these guys on the center table. This is how it also helps to connect the dots together. An important piece, I think since morning it is being a talk for the town today, the logistics. How to integrate logistics, which is an emerging area, especially when we talk of new clinical supplies. Majorly this is cold chain supplies. How to handle these supplies to the right place on time when the challenge also comes with a lower shelf life because this is a new product developed. It is yet to be established, yet to be validated. Important is the right potency of the product need to be delivered for the right clinical study. So this is what global logistics brings a good role to ensure that end-to-end product is safe for the subjects to be done the study. Last but not the least, the challenge is the data complexity. During these phases, a hell lot of data is being generated. For each patient, each sampling, each parameter to be jotted down, to be framed in, to be analyzed, and to report in a timely manner is equally important. So this is where the digitization journey today is making a big difference in terms of saving time and improving the accuracy of the data. The controllable disconnects, which I intend to say that this can be a moving forward learning curve. The time gaps to the market. If we start from scratch, is a journey of 6 to 7 years. if you're involving partners like us, like CDMOs, we can reduce down the cost and time by nothing less than 20 to 30%. And that's a good time to save to the market. The technology failure, which is something not discussed in any of the forum, but there is always a risk when we go for any new process, new technology. That is a joint shoulder responsibility. The CDMOs plays the role. They also equally contribute because for them is also business plus interest for the future. So there lies a joint responsibility to make it a success. In short, I would say it has to be a pharma future ready situation where the CDMOs and the pharma companies are joining hands today. And we see a lot of new drugs coming to the market. The pipeline compared to the previous couple of decades now is much more stronger. Though it also calls for a alarming situation that a lot of new diseases are coming, but yes, the more discovery is happening so that we as a human being community are being more safe for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. I mean, it is you elaborated and pointed out the root causes also and the precautions that require to be taken to make it more successful. Just to add, some of the mitigations would be like early tech transfer planning, that is very paramount in the case of clinical trials, and digitalization and integrated governance of the monitoring with the CMOs and the own company while we're doing that. And global regulatory harmonization also one of the very important tasks just I wanted to add into this. And Ashish, there is the next subsequent question to this over and above. Yeah. How important is early engagement with contract manufacturers in ensuring scale-up, readiness, cost-effectiveness, and supply reliability once the product approaches to the approvals?
Just little out of context, in the room and outside the room as well, I think many of us watch good movies. So I remember one good movie, Vaccine War. If you have seen that movie, there are certain points when they were facing a supply challenge. The very first challenge was the procurement of monkey to conduct the trials. The scientists were struggling in the jungles to catch all those monkeys required. And that was a beautiful case study. The time was the essence. Time was really not available to make that vaccine. It had to be fast on war food basis. So there implies the supply chain, how important it is. Then another point which was not there in the movie, but I think many of the pharma colleagues know, the virus strain which was required to develop the vaccine was also another challenge, which of course with certain support of the governments was being brought in. So therein, because if you see the movie, these all activities were being done by itself the scientist or the one respective body. The missing element, if you see, of course my view, maybe just in the capacity I can quote, if a CDMO or a partner who is having expertise in that area being bring in, the challenges might be minimized. Today, the clinical subjects or clinical molecules to me are in a phase of toddler, which we have to handhold to a journey that they should stand, run, being a youngster, to get mature to the level that they can serve the human community. So important engagement where CDMO can bring in the early readiness is of course one important piece, the process optimization of talking about APIs, small molecules or big molecules, because these guys also come with a lot of know-how and expertise in the areas. When we say process optimization, it's not only on how to manufacture the product, but how to make it a scalable product in the future. Regulatory alignment. So we read bunch of documents on regulatory, but what is applicable to us, therein either CDMOs or there's expert in these areas on regulatory experts of clinical phases, which they advise how you can go in a fast track basis, whether the phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3, can they be initiated in parallel depending on the molecule type, which of the activities you can do in parallel, so to save on time. Important piece just bringing in between the R&D requirement. My colleagues in procurement might know the challenges for R&D procurement. If we talk of the quantity which is required for R&Ds for the entire clinical phase, it runs into thousands.
Yeah.
Getting in one shot the R&D availability from the innovator or from the respective market is really not that easy. They are also mindful to release the R&Ds in a controlled fashion so that time to market can be delayed. So there in these partners, R&D procurement partners or CDMOs bring in the expertise that this can be procured in phased manner for respective phases of the studies, so that the end timelines should not get impacted. Cost part I already spoke about. These ensure that early involvement helps to make the entire plan from phase 1 or preclinical to the commercial launches, that what we can optimize the cost. You can make a stage gate approach with them because the entire payment cannot go in one go. So it has to be a stage gate approach between the partners so that neither they have a bigger risk, neither is a company on the revenue piece. The capex is one big discussion which happens when these kind of clinical studies come in. Just to give you some numbers for a feeling purpose, few R&D procurement runs to 15 to 20 crores for only part of a phase of clinical study. If you have to set up a facility which need to be compliant to the reg market situation, so nothing less than 200 to 300 CR investment is required, and that's a big discussion on the board, wherein these guys come up with a ready facility or they are ready to invest because they have other customers as well. That investment is being deferred until unless company decides to make an in-house investment. So out of the pocket cash flow is being taken care, and at the same time you are there in the game for new development. To sum up from lab to industrial scale, I would just give one example. You might read in the literature as well. Lot of research being done on oncology products. There was one product which was from Novartis. Name is publicly available, is called 𝐂𝐥𝐢𝐳. It's for lymphoma indication. And therein, since Novartis do not want to go upfront in the investment, they made a partnership with Lonza. And this is how they were able to save a lot of time and cost to that. And this was launched in a pretty good time scale of around 7 years only to the market. So good examples are available. We can learn from them and take forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. That is very interesting, and it truly encompasses that manufacturing partnerships are no longer transactional. They are truly strategic and deeply involved in the end-to-end clinical trial journey to the commercial success. So Anupam, you have one question. What role does data continuity from clinical development through the commercialization play a reduction work and a delay in compliance risk?
Thank you, Bhaskar ji, and thank you, Ashish. Good evening to everyone. So, from clinical trials to commercialization, as we have seen over the past few years, or a decade or so, what performance or success was in single digit, now it is growing beyond double digits today. And the failure and success both depends on obviously the quality of the trial and more importantly of the documentation part. Many projects have failed because at the end of the trials, the documentation was not as per the CDMO or the CDSO requirement. So documentation is very important, and documentation can only happen well or as per the regulatory guidelines if the data has been captured from the day one of the primary stage of the trial to the last of the tertiary stage of the trials. Now documentation, not only that, when CDSO gets deep into the discussion of the performance of the trials, they take a lot of data, they ask a lot of data that is already been provided on the standard structure of trials, yes, they agree, but apart from that, they also ask a lot of impromptu questions or at that point of time. So when any company or any company decides to go for a product trial, it starts with an indication that what indications or what problem we are trying to solve at the end of the phase 3 trials.
Yes.
In the life cycle of the trials, many times it happens. You will see many products got launched for indications which was not planned in the beginning of the trial.
Correct.
The biggest now we are seeing is GLP-1, GLP-2.
Yeah.
While in the second year of the trial, they realize there's a subsequent weight loss happening.
Yes.
And later, although it's still sold as a diabetic product, but that is not the primary indication for which the drug is now sold. So the secondary indication has taken over the primary indication. But even when the documents are submitted, it's still submitted on the primary indication of diabetes. So it's very important that the data is captured. Unless the data is captured, CDSO would have not given them an approval to sell it as a weight loss drug.
Yes.
So even the secondary trial, the secondary indication data was so strongly captured by the company that ultimately they could launch the product and make it big and success on secondary indication and not on the primary indications.
Yes.
So as you rightly asked, sir, that yes, data is so important, documentation is so important for the success of the drug.
Absolutely right, Anupam. So these precautions will predominantly reduce the time to market would be reduced by 20 to 30%, and the compliances risk would be properly managed and mitigated, and also the cost efficiency can be managed because the reduction of the entire journey of the clinical trials to launch would be reduced. So that will ultimately help the organizations to get the better revenues, etc. So the next question, Anupam, to you. How can the tighter value chain integration help organizations to balance the speed with the scalability during the global product launch?
Thank you. This is a very highly debated topic in every organization,
Yes.
that how we can reduce the time of the trial.
Right.
The fact is that no matter how much we try to squeeze, something takes time, it takes time. Now, though over a period of time you would see the trials used to run for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Today now for maximum 3 years or 2 years, because the companies cannot stay invested beyond 1,000 days is what we hear in these days. So it's very important that we choose the right partner at the time of trial. We do a very good due diligence of the partner itself. And one of the most important quality the partner that we choose is how strong is the regulatory department they have. The stronger the regulatory department, the better the capacity and expertise of the regulatory department, the quicker we can turn around in terms of documentation as well as the trial data, which can be published at a much frequent levels. So I think, yes, as we, the moment we decide a particular partner, CDMO partner or a clinical trial partner, most important is to see their facility, expertise, and also we faced this challenge before, that when the partners do not have the full scale capability of produce a drug, they do in such equipments which cannot be commercially made later. Though in a very lab, in a very stability trial conditions, it perform very well.
Yes.
But then we transform it into commercial production, we face many times delays and issues which cannot be commercially scaled up. And which performs really well in a scaled down laboratory stage. So it's very important that when we choose, we also look at, what are the equipment they use, can it be scaled later so that it can reduce the time of lag when we plan to launch.
Absolutely right. You rightly pointed, because When we do the R&D batches, we predominantly choose the smaller batch sizes, and the execution and manufacturing process would be slightly different. When we do the scale-up, in a large scale-up manufacturing plant with the higher batch sizes, there would be a teething issues that always comes up. So it is very important point you mentioned that we should actually work on the scale-up basis also at the R&D point of time. So that mistake makes very challenging. That may lead to the other regulatory variation filings to the post-launch. That would actually affect the organization also in terms of the sales, and also in terms of the product availability to the patients also become very challenging. And subsequent question to you, Anupam, is that how pharma companies strengthen collaboration between internal teams, external partners to ensure smoother handover during late-stage clinical development?
So allow me to say this, that there is no right answer to this.
Yeah.
But the most important way is that if we can create a very good teams which is multifunctional, and not only a multifunctional team, but it also needs to have a little bit of clarity in the team itself, that there is a strategic team member, there is a management team member, and there is an execution team member.
Yeah.
And at all these layers of team, there should be cross-functional expertise, so that when the process starts and the end result, we must start the process with the end in mind. And because this all these processes take a lot of time, all the documentation takes a lot of time, and not only the documentation and process, that it should go above the chain and someone has to really check it and also pass it back to the time if there is any error or if there is any miscalculation in the process. So yeah, most of the time we face delays because as Ashish has also mentioned that we end up working in silos. And this entire multifunctional arrangement goes missing.
Yes.
Because everyone has their own KRA to defend.
KRA to defend.
So if yes, it's a difficult task to do, but if we can really create teams like that, where there's a strategic team member and a management and an execution team member from cross-functional teams, and put together, give them a timeline, the chance of success is higher.
Absolutely, absolutely right. Anupam, just I want to add that, so today we stand at a pivotal moment where innovation meets the execution. Clinical trials are the heartbeat of the drug development, but the true measure of success lies how seamlessly we transition from the clinical trials to market success. This journey is not just about the success of the clinical trials, but it is about how efficiently we are able to have the collaboration within the internal teams and external CMOs, and what is the strategy we applied in terms of the regulatory filings and the global regulatory decisions that we are taking. Because at the time of launch itself, we have to see which are the countries we want to launch, what are their respective countries' regulatory requirements, so that we don't need to regenerate the data, go back and see the BIOS, what we did, what is the data we generated, how efficiently this can be seen. So the entire strategy is very important when we develop the clinical trial strategy. So supply chain engagement should start from that particular point. So there would be a lot of nuances that the supply chain teams also need to work upon. Maybe about the raw materials procurement, Ashish, you can also add what are the available CMOs, what is the scale up that the vendor can supply the APIs, what is the efficiency of the APIs, what are the parameters, impurity limits they can actually add and they can deliver. So because we have to look at, and the supply chain also has to be deeply rooted starting from the early R&D stage. That will actually add and formulate a robust strategy that we can bring onto the table, and with the R&D, with the manufacturing, with the procurement and everyone quality. So we can have that formulated strategy that we can deploy and execute from the clinical trials to the commercial success. With this, Anupam, I have another follow-up questions to you on the what role does early and continuous alignment with the policymakers and regulators play a de-risking and transaction from trials to commercial supply. This is more about the regulatory environment and other Anupam. So what are your thoughts and how we can actually simplify this?
So, simplification has to happen at our end only.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
the regulatory department runs in a very structured way, and it's very difficult to get things done from there. But what we can do as pharma companies or a regulatory department does, or what we can do better is to keep ourselves abreast with the most latest gazettes they pass. Because there are a lot of schedules, under the schedules there are a lot of chapters, under the chapter there are a lot of sections. And in all those sections there is always a way to do it and always the deviation that they can allow to do it. So if we know them well, then obviously we can, like for example in the category of vitamin, minerals and supplements, which forms now under FSSI, but under Schedule M, they will be equally monitored like a pharmaceuticals company. At that point of time, what will happen is that if, as an indication, if we know that what would not require a trial, if we know what to write in the report so that it does not require additional data, and we can leverage the public information already or the pre-trial data that has been submitted before, then what we can do is we can reduce the timeline to a large extent. So that probably is one option that we can look at. But yeah, it always comes back from the marketing because they want to utilize certain words. They want to include certain indication that this solves this cures that.
Correct.
Which CDSOs do not allow us to, they take a very hard stand if we write all the stuff. So as a company, if we all agree to avoid those certain elements, then probably we can reduce the timeline of approval.
Yeah, absolutely right. And also, just to add, Anupam, you see, in this, so there are a lot of biotechnology products and other next stage level molecules, those are coming up. So in this scenario, even some of the regulators are not very clear what are the requirements and other things. So it is very good thought to sprint with the regulators also. Say we are developing this particular molecule for this particular market we wanted to launch. So what is the requirements? What are the data requirements? What are the bio studies you want to do? What are the stability data requirements that they have, and efficacy and impurity levels, what they can actually accept? So those kind of engagement we can start at the R&D level itself, so that we can actually build the product also into that parameter. So I think the time is actually coming up. So any thoughts and any questions from the audience? Yeah, so maybe 2 minutes we can take the audience questions if any. Okay. Yeah, please. Yeah, future. So the last good.
Hello. Yeah. So I have a couple of questions actually. So first one is Mr. Bhaskar for you. So when you talk about clinical trials and product development, right? I'm sure there are some APIs or some molecules that need to be sent in and out of India. So of course these are not finished products and these are probably not even listed. So how do you take care of that challenge from declaration standpoint, custom standpoint? So how do you do that for import and export? The second question is, we spoke about speed to market from clinical stage to go live stage, right? And I'm sure there's a whole lot of data points and a whole lot of correlations which may we may not be able to see. So have you all thought about maybe how AI or some analytics or something like that can help speed the go-to-market?
So your question is on the FG products, how we do the import and export, and what are the inputs
For
that
the trial
we do.
products, not
Yeah,
the
the
finished
trial
products.
products. So the trial products, we can actually get the specialized permits, because those may not be actually registered at the customs level also, right? So those may be a biotechnological products which may be required. So like I just a few minutes back mentioned, so we have to start engaging with the regulators also. In India, we have the DGCA and other agencies, FDA agencies, that we can engage. This is what the clinical trials we are actually in the process, and also for the trial basis with the special import permits we can obtain from the regulator bodies. So the importation of those can be imported in that fashion, and also we can actually share the data, how we utilize the material and what happened to that particular material which we actually imported as well. So that is how we can do it. And also for the clinical trials, we sometimes do the bio studies, etc., into the overseas markets also, because it is the regulator requirement to have the bio studies happened in their particular country, in their environment. So for that also we can actually take the special permits for, so that permits would be required both sides, in the from the country, receiving country, and as well as from the Indian regulators also. So there are seamless and we can get, but of course with the effort of proper documentation, proper regulatory requirements that we have to fulfill, and maybe they ask for the some samples before we send, and with the certificate of analysis with the data from the R&D. Those were very much available and we can provide, and we can get the approvals also very faster for that. Yeah.
I will just add a little bit what Bhaskar sir has said really well. So documentation part, what he mentioned, is very important. So how we are importing and how we are showing that we are importing.
Yeah.
Like say for example, if you are importing the same API, but for laboratory use only and not to be used for any human consumption or trial, then the customs and the import agencies, they take a little bit of a soft stand on this.
Yeah.
To add to this a step further, when you import your finished product, RLD especially, so you have to specify your quantity from where you're procuring, and this is a very transparent legal framework is available. So I think government also is supporting a lot of development to happen around, and this is very supportive. Now earlier the days, for the license of permit, you were waiting for 1 month. Now the government is supporting for within 2 weeks also, or maybe within 1 week if you are really clear on documentation.
Yeah. Ashish, do you want to add that, how we can actually make it faster for the launch perspective, and you want to add any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Thanks, Bhaskar. So, just touching base to sum up in the interest of time, we are now talking about the future readiness for these subjects.
Yeah.
So, basically, just 3 pointers to talk about here. So, we need to see in what geographies we are going to conduct the studies, and we are going to launch the product in which all areas. Try that you have a decentralized supply chain network, so that the closer to you are to the testing area or study area, the faster it is. So decentralized model will be a workable model. Second important is you need to have smart logistics all around, because these products are really new to the market. You need to have no excursion. Right packaging need to be in place. In case there is innovation required, you can approach the partners. But do first thing right at the first time. That is important. Last but not the least in this category for today, we need to have a vein-to-vein digitization data available. When we talk of studies, see, we are going to have these medicines for the future science. So the digitization in this space is going to help a lot, but not on patient level. I'm talking about on vein-to-vein level digitization is required for the future. Because I rightly mentioned, Anupam also, we are doing study for one indication, but we never know if the drug is having a merit in other indication. So that data will help for the future readiness.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. So let's make the supply chain excellence as a strategic differentiator, not just as the operational necessity. Because when we deliver, we don't deliver just the product. we deliver the hope, reaching people, touching lives on time and every time. Thank you very much, the distinguished panel members, and thank you very much to the audience for engaging session. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, gentlemen, for expertly guiding and giving a fitting conclusion, a fitting culmination to this day-long, extravagant knowledge sharing and knowledge gathering, and most importantly, proving to be a real-time learning platform. Once again, give them a loud round of applause for sharing their expertise, experiences, and in fact, deep know-how and practical insights on bridging clinical trials to commercial success. I'd request Smithy to please come on stage, felicitate our panelists. The session has appropriately touched upon turning innovative research into market-ready products that benefit patients globally. Once again, a loud round of applause for them. We have the very distinguished moderator and the head of EM supply chain and head of global export logistics, Sun Pharma, Mr. Bhaskar Ande. Give it up for Mr. Bhaskar, ladies and gentlemen. We have the Vice President, Procurement and Supply Chain at Bharat Serums and Vaccines. Give it up for Mr. Ashish Mohan, ladies and gentlemen. And Mr. Anupam Roy, Universal NutriScience is much more now on a strategic leap with him heading the supply chain division. Mr. Anupam Ray, ladies and gentlemen, from Universal NutriScience, heading the supply chain division. Please get it for a group photograph.